One, two, three, checking. Hey guys, it's Zero. Today we're going to be covering the 80s modern deck, and when I say I'm going to cover more in detail, I promise so. Today we're going to be covering more of the monster spec. We're going to be covering exactly what monsters do what and why they do it, and what makes them so important. We're not going to, this is for the main deck only, of course, when we're going to go down to the extra deck and the side deck, but your key guy is going to be D-Mock, or Dark Magician Chaos. When he's normal summon or special summon, you can add one spell card from your hand, and when he destroys monsters, he banishes them, and if he gets destroyed at all, he gets removed from play instead, which opens up plays with your dimensional fusion, because then you're able to bring him back afterwards and keep on recycling your spells, which is what the deck was originally meant to do, but then it started doing the monarchs and things got a little bit more crazier. You can tell. Jinzo was put at 1 and it was a huge threat this format. I mean, even any deck that was a deck ran Jinzo just because they could shut down their crowds if they needed to. It was such a viable card, and that's why in this deck, in 2007 decks, you're only going to see like 3 to 7 back row in a deck period, and that's going to be it, because the Jinzo fear was real back then, and the fear of you sending down all your back row to be hit by Jinzo back in the day was just unbelievable, and there's barely anything that you could do afterwards. So Jinzo was a really frightening card, and that's the reason Chainburn didn't pick up right off the bat when it was a deck, because it had to worry about Jinzo being a thing, and then just kind of waited until 2008 to show itself. Caius, the Rise of the Monarchs came out in about 2007 or 2008. I don't know the exact date, but I do apologize for that. It came out around the time Airblade did, and I remember this specifically being a deck because I really wanted to build it back in the day because it was so crazy. Just do all the crap you can do. So first off, Caius can banish any card on the field. That's big for you as a Monarch player, especially DD Monarch, because then you can banish your scout points for free. You can target himself and do 10,000. You can target your opponent's stuff if you want to, or if you have that Necroface on the field, you can banish that and make everyone banish top 5 cards of their deck, making Caius one of the most important cards in this deck, because he can literally either answer things, or he can be the combo player, making him one of the best monarchs in DD Monarch history. Your second key monarch is definitely Caius the Light Monarch. This guy is so crazy. If you're playing monarchs back in the day, you love this guy because you could distribute your dead stuff and draw 2 cards. This would be your scout points that you don't get to tribute. This would be your Necrofaces that randomly ran up on the field. I mean, there's so many ways this guy's good, and if you special summon him through Fissure, he can still do it, which places him in a really good position, and honestly one of the best cards in this deck just because of how much draw power he gives you just off a few cards. Next is going to be Triple Ryza. Ryza's amazing against certain decks. Against this deck it's not too great when you're doing the mirror, but if you're playing against something like Airblade or something from 2007, it definitely helps out being able to bounce the top card, take that top card that really annoys you and put it on top of the deck. It really helps sometimes and can get you out of some really sticky situations. Next you run 2 Golden Huniclus. This card is a card that I personally run. I mean, people didn't run this, but I love it to the point where I do. And I wish people did, because instead they made Mobius, and I understand why, but still I'd recommend doing Golden Huniclus. So the reason for this is he gains 300 attack for each card removed from play. Does not seem broken until you realize you're playing a different dimension deck with 3 Necrofaces. With 3 Necrofaces, that just tells you 15 for just Golden Huniclus alone. That's crazy. And there are so many ways to make him huge. It's just so good on so many levels with that. You run 2 DD Survivor. You don't want to run 3 because it ends up being too cloggy on your end, and you just don't want those clogged hands in this kind of deck. You want to try to stop yourself from getting as cloggy as hands as possible, because the problem with DD Monarch back in the day was it was inconsistent, and you're fearful of cards like Giant Trunade, Heavy Storm, and Cold Wave would just ruin your day if you weren't careful enough. But if this deck did go off, yes, if it went off, it would go off like my first video did. It's crazy. But if you stop it, it does nothing, and it's kind of a bummer, but it's how Monarchs are. They're either anti-meta or they're meta. That's how Monarchs have always been. They have always adapted to what they need to do in order to survive. Oh man. Necroface needs to stay at 2 for this deck alone. Necroface is a bad card to have at 3. When it gets faced up, banish top 5 cards of the deck. Doesn't seem like an issue until you realize if it banishes itself, it counts. If it banishes off of Golden Sark, or you discard it with Garrison Charity, or any sort, it still triggers, making this the card, the MVP of your deck. This card can make you mill your opponent, it can make you summon a huge Golden Hemoclast, which they can't deal with, or you can burn them to death with a DD Dominate in my sideboard. That's just, there's so much use on this guy, and the fact that you can also use a secondary ability, which is really good, because it brings back all your stuff just in case you messed up, he really pays for himself. Even in the mirror match, he's amazing. He's just a really good card, and he really helps you out in those tech positions. And of course, with all the ways of getting rid of him, it just really proves why Necroface should never go back to 3. I understand too. I'm like, okay, don't put it at 3, guys, because if you bring back Necroface and Diffuser, I'm playing this deck again, and you guys aren't gonna be that happy. So 3 Banisher of the Light just for consistency reasons, and I don't want the other Banisher of Radiance because I want more of a defensive build with this guy, because you're already playing aggressive enough anyways, and your Banisher of the Radiance is easy to get rid of, which is a big thing when you're playing a Monarch deck, because you don't want your things to be easily answered because the deck's easy to answer, there's no point in playing it. That's simple. 3 DD Scout Point, one of the key cards back in the day, and it still is one of the best cards in this DD Monarch deck. You contribute it for your lights, making you draw extra cards. You can banish it with your Caiuses, and they can deal 1,000. And the fact that it keeps on coming back and keep on giving is just crazy. I mean, this guy really pays for himself, and he really helps you get to those good positions. You need it too. Oh man, this card stay banned. You even put this card at 1 and you screw over the entire meta. Like, pay 2,000 life points. Both players special summon as many of them play monsters as possible. Last time I checked, Return from the Different Dimension got banned, and it was a lot worse. This card is 10 times worse, because it's a spell card, so you can use it during your turn, and you don't have to wait to activate it. Meaning, even today, it'd be relevant. It would make decks super fast and crazy consistent. Because they'd be like, pay 2,000 life points, special summon everything from my special zone, from my room zone, GG. I would love this thing to become legal, and I would never want this card to go back to 1 because it would really, really destroy the meta. But this card was at 3 in 2007 because it just got printed, and it really, really, really brought DD decks. It brought the Aeroplay deck. I mean, this card brought so many decks just because of what the card did. It was crazy what this card did to the meta, and it just broke it and turned it into... After 2007, decks started being super fast. Because they had to beat the DD Monarch deck. They had to get on top of it. They had to make a better deck than it. And that's when Konami makes money nowadays. It continues to do so. They make a better deck than what's coming up. Constantly. That's better than the previous. But I don't know if they can. I don't know if this thing's at its full power if that happened. But who knows. Dad's pretty good too, so I won't be bitched too much. Metamorphosis is dirty. especially in this deck. You can Ajama lock your opponent because you have a Demock and a Metamorphosis in the same deck. That's just wonderful. You can also make 2 Cyber Twins in the same turn. I mean, that's kind of cool. The Cyber Twin OTK in a deck you're not supposed to, but you can. And the big thing about Metamorphosis is it also has a dual purpose in this deck, along with the OTKing aspects it already gives decks. It gives it a defensive of the Dominites, then also it gives a utility look to the deck. Because then you contribute your DD survivors and your Necrofaces, getting that random Man's Fusion monster, doesn't matter which, that's why there's a whole bunch of level 4s in there. And you can trigger it if the macro is on the field. That's just great. That's just great. That's nothing like a 3+1, right guys? Golden Sark is literally the most scariest card in this deck. If you play this card correctly, it is really going to make your opponents want to not play you anymore. If you banish Necroface, it triggers. That's the big thing about Golden Sark. That's the huge thing about it. If you banish Necroface, it triggers. No matter what you pick, it's always a good pick. If you pick Necroface, he banishes and triggers. If you pick DD Scout Alliance, get a special. If you pick any of these big beefy monsters, you're going to get them in 2 turns, which is generally really scary for this kind of deck. Or you could go pick your Banisher of Lights if you didn't pull your macros or your treasures. It seems pretty good. Crystal Charity was at 1 in 2007. It quickly got dispatched in 2008. It was really saddening, but what 2008 was, I'm so glad this wasn't a card because it would make Dad so much crazier, but that's beside the point. My own personal attack. They should have run this card back in the day. They should have, but I understand why they did. Because Heavy, Giant Trunade, and Cold Wave hate being here, but because it's 2007 and old school stuff, people aren't going to be doing that because they're people who play on Unlimited usually forget those cards. It's kind of funny. And you gain 500 life points for each card banished. Doesn't seem like a big deal until you banish a Necroface and gain over 5,000 life points per soul absorption. That doesn't even count the fact if you banish another Necroface or all the other bullshit you can pull off. I mean, this card really gives you a lot of life points. I underestimated this card until Galactic God first showed it to me in 2010, and I was just like, that's cool. Wait a second, if I apply this to my 2007 deck, oh wow! You know what I mean? If you don't like maining it, I would definitely cite it at 3 just because of what it can do. It's so funny and it really makes it interesting because the second you have 7,017,000 life points, I don't think your opponent is supposed to somehow figure out how to beat that because there's not a lot of ways to do that. You just run Fissure to just banish monsters because you need another type of macro type card, and Fissure helps with that, and also it's macro because it's the key card in the deck. Now you can run the Helios, the Primo Sun at 1. I don't like it personally, but it is an option, and I am gonna say and support it because it is a pretty good one. I just don't personally like it because if I'm gonna be running level 1, I better be running Thousand Eyes Restrict. Otherwise, I ain't gonna bother. Your level 8 options for your Metamorphosis is Meteor B and your Cyber Twin. You're not only gonna go for Cyber Twin, but it's always good to have a secondary option just in case your opponent does decide to sign that machine hate against you or whatever they try to do. You really want to be careful side game 2 and 3 because that's where this deck had its issues and generally was a game 1 deck, and even then it had issues because of Heavy Storm, Giant Trunade, and Cold Waves. Cold Wave wasn't popular, but Heavy Storm and Trunade were, and that made it hard deck to play because of that. But if it went off, it was great. Like, if the deck goes off, you guys slots, great. But with Heavy Stormer, Trunade, and Cold Wave, and MST, it's kind of a back row hate format. And that's what made the deck not popular, but at the same time, it's still one of my favorite decks because of what it can do. 3 Ajama King and 2 Ajama Knight. They Ajama lock the field, and it's crazy. The reason I chose Ajama Knight as my 6 is just because I like to Ajama lock the field for personally. You have 2 Ajama Knights, because you do have 2 little... I did have 2 level 5s in here. I don't need more, because I have the Thunder guy here. I didn't like him. So I'm just going to keep it in for now until I find a good replacement for him. Right now, I haven't seen one, so... Again, if you can get the Knight out by any ways necessary, it is helpful, and it will make you help you banish those few cards. Then you just have literally 6 level 4 just to trigger your Necrophases and all that good stuff. Next we go into the side deck. Side deck's really relevant for this deck because depending on the format and how things go, it depends on what you side, right? 2 obvious is they get rid of back row, kind of speeds up the deck. Your DD Survivors and your DD Warrior answered things. Some people would main these, others wouldn't. They'd side deck it. I'm siding these. Your 3 weaknesses of the deck are definitely be Heavy Storm, Giant Trunade, and Cold Wave in this single format. It really hurts the deck, but the thing is, it's a gimmicky deck. If it went off, it's great, but at the same time, your opponent could have the answer in their hand while you're doing the combo and just be like, really? Or they'll answer it before you can get off the combo and you're just like, oh. Other things, DD Dominite is crazy way to win this game because it just 300 damage for your true move per play card. With your Necrophases, 15 times 3 isn't pretty, and then you can keep on going on top of it. So DD Dominite's a pretty great card. We also run the Tribute because, well, blowing up the fields is absolutely ridiculous, especially in this older type format where it wasn't too common for decks to constantly regenerate themselves like Brain Abyss do. And it was really scary to blow up the field and gain 2,500 life points just for your field alone. It's pretty good, I would say, and it triggers your Necrophases and your DD Scout Planes in case things are going bad. You can also use it too. It's a dual use card, and that's always makes it good. So this will be the DD Monarch deck. This is part 2 of the DD Monarchs. Tomorrow I'll be covering, of course, like I said, the Airblade deck. The Airblade deck is a little more crazier, but it doesn't have as much. It doesn't do the Monarchs as much. It ended up siding them, so that's why I'm debating about doing it with them. But if I do, I will definitely do it. If not, I'll just go to the new stuff, because literally Monarchs have not changed in a couple years. The only difference is there's some Storm Force in there. I mean, I could cover you Frog Monarchs and then basically be the last 10 years of Monarchs after DD got hurt, pretty much. So that's going to be the end of the video. I thank you guys for watching.